Perfect. And that should be good. Okay. All right. And so, with that, everyone, welcome to our Career Center workshop. And so, my name is Sarah Sasaki. I am a career counselor here at the center. And today's workshop is going to be focused on preparing for our upcoming engineering and technology career fair, which is coming up this week. All right. And so, let's see. And so, yeah, we'll be getting into, how you can prep before the fair, what to expect on the day of, and then also like follow-ups for after the fair as well. And so I do want to say too that this presentation is being recorded and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel, our Career Center YouTube channel, sometime later today. Just so, since I know there is going to be a lot of information, so you can go back and access it, or in case if you've had friends or classmates who weren't able to join, then they can go to our YouTube channel later. Okay. All right. And so, see. All right, so with that, just to, do some logistics. So if you are here as part of a class assignment, you are required to take a picture of your handwritten, let's see, typed notes with today's date, September 15th, 2025, and then you would email them to this email address here, cdc.events@csulb.edu. And for the email subject line, you would have class assignment, and then you could do prepare engineering fair workshop, just so we know which workshop you attended. And then in the email, you would include your name, student ID number, the name of your class, and your instructor's name as well. All right, so I'll give it a moment in case anyone has to take a picture of that or take a screenshot there. Okay, let's see here. Okay, perfect. I think that's good. Okay, and so just some quick guidelines. And so if you do have any questions come up during the workshop, please send them into the chat. And then I'll answer them at the end just to make sure that I have enough time to go through, all of the information I have to share. And then we'll have some time for a Q&A at the end. And again, the recording will be able to be accessed in our YouTube channel. And you would just search up CSULB Career Center, like what you have here, and then you could find the recording there. Okay. All right. And so with that, so the job fair, it is going to be this Wednesday, September 17th. And we are doing a different time frame, for those of you who have been to our job fairs before. And so that we typically host them like during the afternoon, but we are trying a new direction for this fair. And so it's going to be in the evening from 5 to 8 p.m. And it's also going to be in a different location for us as well at the Walter Pyramid. All right. And so, you know, all of our career fairs, they're targeted towards bringing, all of our talented, CSULB students together with employers who are recruiting for, full-time, part-time internship opportunities across all majors. Let's see. All right. Let's see. And so with that, and so I'm just going to show, if you haven't been to our job fairs before, I'm just going to show a few pictures that, capture, what it's like there. And so again, you're making a lot of connections. You're meeting a lot of employers here. Other students are going around the tables too. And, some employers will have different approaches. Some of them may be talking like one-on-one, or some, maybe doing like a group session, just to share information all at once. And so it just depends on the employer. But you can see, I think for here we have like a small group going on, and it looks like they may have like, their resumes in their hand, or they may have some of the job fair materials that we provide. Okay. And so Let's see. And so, yeah, again, just people going through the fair and, lots of students, attending. All right. And so to check in for before the fair, how to prep. And again, you're attending this workshop, and so that's part of that before prep that you have covered there. All right. And so to get into more logistics, so check in for the job fair will start at 4:30 p.m. And so you're welcome to come earlier if you want before then. Um, but again, we'll be checking in everyone at 4:30. And then let's see here. And so you will be receiving at check-in your name tag. You'll receive a wristband, and this will show that you have checked in already. And then you'll receive the map of the fair, which has, the tables where the employers will be at, and then the list of the employers and companies as well. And so again, if you have been to our other job fairs, check-in will be different where we are going to be having one line. So it's just going to be one line overall. There's not separate lines for like, RSVP, non-RSVP. It's just going to be one line. And you're going to line up at the blue ramp area of the pyramid. And so for the pyramid, there are different entrances and exits, but you are going to line up at the blue ramp. You are going to see, like in this picture here, you can see the staircase like right in front, and then off to the right is where the ramp would be. Do not use the staircase. Everyone's lining up at the ramp. If you do have to leave the fair for some reason, like if you have a class,
Hello, sorry. So I'm just gonna grab your
oh,
keys.
I do ask that
Keys,
everyone
keys,
please be
keys,
on
keys
mute.
from Venice. The
Let's see if
keys?
everyone's able to be on mute. Let's see. There we go. Thank you. Okay, perfect. All right. And so if you do have to leave the job fair, like if you have a class or um, if you maybe have something going on, but you're going to be coming back, so you would need to rejoin the line. So I would really encourage, if you're able to, stay at the fair, talk to whoever you need to, network, and then, and then leave for the day. Um, but again, if you're like, oh, I want to come for a bit and then come back again, just please make sure to rejoin the line. And if you do need to use the elevator, we will have a staff escort available. And so on the day of the fair, if you would need help with getting directions for that, please just let one of our staff members know. And so for all of our CDC staff members, we are going to be wearing blue shirts. So it's going to be really easy for you to spot us. And so again, we'll be happy to help you out. All right. And so at our job fair, we also will have a LinkedIn photo booth available. And so I always really recommend using it. I feel like it's a nice way to, get a new picture for your LinkedIn and just update it there. And so we'll have that available. All right. Okay, and so this is the layout of what the job fair is going to look like. And so we do have bathrooms available inside the pyramid, so you wouldn't have to leave and then come back if you have to use the bathroom. You'd be able to use them in here. And then so, if you look on the bottom left-hand corner, we see that student check-in area, which is where everyone's going to be lining up. And then also, if you are volunteering at the job fair, that's where volunteer check-in will be in too. And so essentially the flow of the job fair is going to be with how these arrows are going. And so you check in that bottom left-hand corner, and then you're going to go to the right, and that's where all those tables with the numbers, that's where employers are going to be. And then you'll be able to keep going all the way around to the other side where more employers are. And again, you will be given handouts that have the numbers and the employers and which one lines up with which. And then you will see, I know there's that like red blocked off area, and we are blocking that off for our employers. We might be opening that up where the flow can go further, but as of now, we are just blocking off that area, and so you wouldn't be able to go past like the red lines. Like let's say, for example, if you're like, oh, I really want to talk to employer 131, as of now, it's going to be blocked off, so you would have to go around. So I really do recommend, um, you know, as you talk to employers, trying to follow the flow, just so, because you can circle back, but just to make it easier for you, where it's like, okay, I have to kind of go against the flow of traffic here. Um, Let me see. And then we'll also have like, again, you'll see staff all around the job there if you need support. But then also you'll see on the bottom here next to student check-in, we have our CDC info table. So if you had some questions and we can help you out with that there. Um, and then, so also an important note, if you do have to exit the job fair, whether you're coming back or you're leaving, for the night, you can only exit through the exits where the green line is, the red line is, and the yellow line. So you can't exit through where you came in, which is where that blue ramp is. So you can only exit through the other colors, yellow, red, and green. And again, I know there's a lot going on, so please check in with staff if you have any questions that come up. Let me see. Okay. All right. And so let me make sure. And so, yeah, again, we have that elevator for anyone, who needs that for accessibility. And so I think, that's everything for the map here. Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna do another check-in for this as well since I know a few students joined in later. If you are here for a class assignment, you are required to take a picture of your handwritten or typed notes with today's date, September 15th, 2025, and emailing them to cdc.events@csulb.edu with this subject line here. And then in the email, you'd include the following info: name, ID number, class name, and instructor. So I'm going to leave it up there just for a moment for anyone who may have joined late and who need this for a class. And so I'll give it a moment there. Let's see. Okay, let's see. All right. Okay, I'll leave it there. Okay. And so now getting into the event in CareerLink. And so what I would really recommend for everyone is to RSVP for the job fair in CareerLink. And so to get to CareerLink, this is our CDC platform. You'll go to your single sign-on where you find like Canvas, My CSU will be, and you'll click on CareerLink here. And then once you get to Career Link, when you get to the home page, you're gonna see at like the top like black section here, you'll see different headings. You'll click on events, and then you'll click on, when you get to events to help filter it out for the job fair, you can click on type, and then it'll pull down a drop down, click on job fairs, and then click apply. And then it'll pull up our job fair, which you can see here, and you'll click on that there. And then you'll be taken to the homepage of our job fair. And so to RSVP, you would just have to click attend. So it's pretty, straightforward, easy to do. And so I recommend doing that so you're able to receive via email a preview of, again, like the map that I shared, as well as the handout with the list of employers and companies, and then also their corresponding table numbers. And so I think it's really helpful to be able to prep early in that way of like knowing, okay, like my, priority employers, they're going to be in this area. And so I might head to that area first to be able to talk to them there. Okay, let's see here. All right, so again, to RSVP, really quick to do, just press attend and then you're good to go. And you will see other sections for the job fair page here with like employers and jobs. And so you are able to see already now all the employers who are attending the job fair, as well as you can see, what job postings, they have like in CareerLink. And so, yeah, every employer who's attending the job fair, they are hiring at least for one position. So some companies may have more, but every company is hiring for at least one position. And so I think it's just really helpful to go through this page and, just to do that research beforehand. All right. And so we do have 61 employers attending the job fair. And as you're going through the companies or like through that employers tab, you can use different search filters to like quickly find what you're looking for. Um, And so we have filters for like position type, like full-time, part-time, internships. We have filters for organization industry. And so different areas like construction or like aerospace or energy, for example, or the environment, consulting. And then we also have search filters for work authorization as well. Um, and so, just depending on the employer, what work authorizations, they would be open to. And then as you go through the employers, you will see like stars next to each of them. And so by clicking on that, you can star them and just mark them as interested. But this is just for your reference. Like it doesn't tell the employer like, oh, Sarah is interested in your company. I think it's just because we do have 61 employers, it is a long list. And so it could just make it easier for you. Like as you're going through, like, oh, wait, which ones do I really want to keep mind of again? Like, which ones do I want to focus on? And so the stars can be helpful for you to do that there. Let me see. Okay. All right. And so this is what it would look like. And so again, when you're on that job fair homepage, you would click on employers, click on more filters, and then you can filter out the position, organization, industry, work authorization, and then you would click apply and then see what comes up for you there. All right. And so, to help you, again, best prepare for the job fair, I really recommend this Succeed framework, where Succeed, we set goals for ourselves, we understand the industry, construct a strategy, create your elevator pitch, exercise your communication skills, examine and revise your resume, and dress for success. And I'll be going through these different components. Let's see as we move forward here. Okay. So set goals. So I feel like this is super helpful, where especially if this is your first job fair, like what do you want to accomplish? Is this for you to, just get an idea of like who's hiring, just to mainly network, or it's like I really want to get an internship, for example. But then also like what industries interest you? So like what I just mentioned previously, like, oh, I'm really focused on, for example, if it's like construction and consulting, I really want to find positions related to those. But then also it's like, companies interest you. And, it's like, okay, like, this is my priority. But then also like, oh, I would be open to working for these companies as well. And so by creating that action plan, and so, if you do have those target companies in mind where you're like, I really, you know, I feel aligned with the work that they do and they have positions that, I feel like I'd be able to grow a lot in. But then I think it's also helpful too to have like the companies where, they may not be your priority, but you're still interested. Like it may still be in an industry that you're focused on or like in a related industry. And so, again, by creating this plan, I think it just helps you to be strategic. And then I think it can also help you with confidence building too, because for example, some students may talk to their target companies first because they're like, I want to make sure I talk to them before the line gets long. And then others may talk to, like, instead of their target, maybe like secondary target companies where it's like, oh, again, I can really, like, kind of ease into the job there, build up more of that confidence before I talk to my like primary target companies. Let's see. And then I'll also just as a reminder, if there's any questions, please feel free to send those in the chat. And then there will be time for some Q&A at the end. Let's see. Okay. All right. And so again, you can have a different strategy there, just, as you prepare for that. And so, for example, it's like, I think it's helpful to always have like notes of like, okay, these are the companies I'm going to talk to. Like these are my priority for the day. These are where they're located. And then for like your secondary target companies, just because the job there, it's going to be a lot to take in at first. And there's so many employers and so many students. And so I think this just helps to give you, just like a framework of how to approach the fair. All right. And just, for you to make sure that you are talking to the companies that you were really hoping for. Let's see. Okay. And so, with understanding your industry, and so I would really recommend researching the employers beforehand, where, of course, they're there to share information about them, the work they do, what they may enjoy most about their positions, what may be challenging. And so, but I feel like it always helps students to stand out where you already have like familiarity, like you already know about the kind of work that these companies do. And so, it's not saying you have to know every single company and like what they all do, but I think especially for those priority and then like second priority companies, having that idea so when you go up to them, you don't have to ask like, oh, what does your company do? Because I think, for employers, they're always happy to share that information. But I think, for them, like the students who already come in knowing, like, oh, yeah, like you provide these kinds of services or you just finished this project, I feel like that does give a better impression there. And so, you can research by using resources like CareerLink, which we were just on. Again, we have all the employers there. You can click on them, click on their pages, see what information they've shared. We also have another resource called Career Shift, which when you're on CareerLink, just how we clicked on like, oh, events at the top to get to the job fair page, we do have another tab for resources, and you can click on that. And then you will find CareerShip if you scroll down. And CareerShip quickly, it's just another it's another place to look for jobs and internships, but it also has company information too. And so I'll show what a screenshot of that looks like in a little bit. You can go to the company website, and you can also use other websites like Glassdoor and LinkedIn. And so by doing this research, you can, I feel like, get a better idea of what the employers are looking for. Like, oh, when I go to like, CareerLink and LinkedIn, like they're emphasizing like intern, like recruitment right now. Or it's like, oh, as I'm looking at, the different sections of like the company's website, I'm seeing that they really value like collaboration as like as a soft skill for candidates to have, but then also like, okay, what kind of values does this company have, because also like reflecting on like, does this align with my own too? All right. And so, as an example for company websites, and some companies may not have websites, so that's where I recommend just trying some of those other resources too. But again, if it's smaller, they may not have like a super big online presence. And so, going to the company website, looking at, for example, like they have like an about section about their culture. They have like why join our team. They have a section for projects and facts and analysis. And so, again, it's not having to like know everything about the company, but I think just having like a good overview about who they are, what they do, what they stand for. But you can also look into other resources too, like social media, if they're on like Instagram, for example, maybe. But then also like news articles, like if you just do a Google search and you can see, um, if they're coming up, if they've launched like a new project recently, for example. And then, so to get to career shifts, so again, just like what I mentioned earlier, you'll go back to Career Link, and then you'll go to the top for resources, scroll down to online tools, click on Career Shift. And then once you've registered or logged in, and it's free to register, you can do a company search. And so you can go to that left, column, click on companies, click on search, and then you can put like, the company specific name here, and then, see what results come up. Click on this page, for example, for Clark Construction. And then, these are some, information highlights that they've included here. And they have like different areas as well for like company jobs, for example. And they also have like LinkedIn and oh, find us on Facebook here. And so again, just some additional resources. And then so for Glassdoor, I think this is really great too, because with Glassdoor, it also provides like employee reviews. Like how employees' experiences were. They can leave like comments. And so you would just click, when you get to Glassdoor, click on companies and then go to the bottom where you can search for a company. And then I searched up like San Diego Gas and Electric, for example, and you can see a lot of areas like reviews, jobs, what salaries look like from information that employees have shared. what interview questions came up for them. And so I think this is very helpful because I like how it does give that employee perspective too. And so, yeah, again, as another resource for you to look at. And so, now when, you're like, okay, I have an understanding of what the companies are looking for. Again, if I am planning on applying for one of the positions they posted, how do I make sure I stand out, that I show that I'm aligned with their work, that, my experiences are relevant for them. And so, this is where I recommend that we hone in on the position descriptions and keywords. And so, for example, if I'm looking at like the company list, and I click on like Ames Construction, for example, and I go to the next part. And so for Ames Construction, when I get to their page, I can click on view all jobs and I can see, what positions are they hiring for. But also I can see like the description of the company and also like they have like a website. You can click on view full profile to see if they have additional information, but then I can also see like their industry, like construction. And so after I click on view all jobs, so, like, I clicked on their engineering internship, for example. And so, when you go to the position, you'll see the title of it. I'll see that, okay, position type, it's a paid internship. I'll see a summary of, what the position's about or like what the company does. Um, and then you will see ideally more details like, oh, requirements or like qualifications or like what will your tasks and responsibilities be. And, some companies have a lot of information. Some may have like a shorter outline. It just depends. Um, and so, based on like what you're able to find from that position description, after that, this is where I'd recommend pivoting to freewordcloudgenerator.com. And this is again in the title, it's free to use. And so, basically, with this resource, I'm able to take like any text, like so again from that position description, I can paste it here, and then I can press enter. And then it is going to show me like what words are coming up the most often from that position description. And so I would say not to like solely rely on this resource, but to use it in addition to you also just making sure to review the description yourself. But you can see like, okay, is there a trend in like what they're like really emphasizing? And so for here, for example, I can see like systems, HVAC, energy, conceptual, like design. And then I can see other words as well too. And so I feel like this is a nice way of getting like quick highlights about the position. But again, I would really recommend still going through the position yourself there. And so, again, just another resource for you to use because I think this is especially helpful for when you are working on your resume and you're thinking about what keywords am I trying to highlight? What do I really want to like have like pop up the most as like they're reviewing your resume there? So I think this is really helpful. Okay. And so, again, we've gone over, keywords and parts about resumes. And so now creating your elevator pitch. And so your elevator pitch, just like the name of it, it's meant to be a pitch you could give, during the length of like an elevator ride, for example. So if it's like a minute, like, 45 seconds, for example. And so, oh, again, just as a reminder, if there are questions, please send them into the chat, and then there will be time for Q&A at the end of the workshop. Um, and so with the elevator pitch, so this is a way to quickly, summarize who you are. Um, and like what you're looking for, to a prospective employer. And so again, we're not trying to share like everything about us and like our entire life story, but instead we really do want to highlight, what is most relevant for them to know. And so, for example, like your name is really important for one, you know, your major or like if you're an alumni like what you've graduated with and like but for current students like your class year like oh I'm a first year I'm a second year um And then also, again, like what is your goal? Like, why are you visiting the company's table? Like, are you just trying to learn more about them in general? Or like, oh, I saw that you have a full-time position available, and I'd love to, get some more insights about that. Um, and then getting into, and this is, I feel like a big part, like what are some unique selling points about you? And so again, like how are you like if you are, for example, like and usually students are seeking like specific positions when they talk to an employer, what makes you qualified for that position? And so highlighting briefly again like any relevant projects you've done, internships, work experience, or just any other kinds of positions if you feel like it's relevant. Um, and I'll also be showing some examples too, in some other slides. And again, um, why are you interested in this company? Because again, there's going to be 61 like engineering slash, like tech or like other related fields, these kinds of companies at the job fair. And so I feel like it's nice, like what I was talking about earlier about understanding your industry, being able to bring up like some quick points about like, oh, again, like your company's focus on like sustainability and you know, merging that with, like the energy projects you've conducted, And so again, it's not trying to, tell the company all about the company, but again, some quick points about them, why you're interested, shows that you've done the research. And then I feel like it's also nice to come in with like questions prepared. Um, and so, again, just to be able to kind of keep the conversation going. Because if you, just give yourself an overview, they're not sure about what you're looking for. And so let's see. Okay. And so with that, I do also want to say for the elevator pitch. So it's not, and it really depends on like the conversation, the rapport you have with the employer, where, it's not going to be where you go up to an employer and you're like, hi, my name is Sarah, and then I get into all of this. Um, I feel like as you talk to the employer, different parts of the elevator pitch may come out, but also it depends. As soon as you meet the employer, they may say, "Oh, can you tell me about yourself? Like, oh, why what made you want to stop by our table?" And that's where it's like, oh, "Okay, I can bring up these points here." So, it's being strategic with like how the conversation's going, because if they're like, "Hey, I'm going to let the employer's like, I'm going to let the student take the lead," that's where it's good to kind of do a quick intro and then go into a question. And so I feel like it depends like as you talk to them. Um, but I feel like what could be helpful is like when you talk to the employer, just kind of, that, quick intro about yourself. And then if they're like, oh, okay, they're still letting me go, then like whether it's asking a question or bringing up some of these points. Um, so again, I think this is a really good framework for you to have as you approach them, just so you have information ready to be able to share. But then again, it's being strategic about how you share that with them too. Okay. And so again, to help you with crafting that elevator pitch, and so you don't have to like make a whole chart for this, but I think it's helpful to think about these questions of like, what's my goal? Like, how am I qualified? So like, okay, I'm looking for an internship and I'm highlighting some of my academic knowledge, past positions I've had and some skills I've developed, and then what makes me interested in the company, and then what are my questions? And so I think it's good yet just to have these, and you can print this out. You can have it with you on the day of the job fair, just so before you talk to the tables, you know exactly what to share with them. And so again, just to help you with creating that outline for yourself. Okay, and so like this is one example. And so, my name is Jane. You know, and then I go into like, I'm a junior at CSULB and I'm studying electrical engineering. So I have like name, year, my major. And then I get into, oh, I'm impressed with your company's commitment to develop, future leaders in engineering with this training program. I'm bringing up a specific point about the company. Um, That's a passion I've really developed here at school. So I'm showing like I have connections here as a member of Triple E. I've developed communication and leadership skills that I regularly apply in my engineering projects and part-time job. I'm an active member of the org and I hope to run for office next semester. I'm curious about any other details you can provide regarding the training program. Okay, so after that quick intro about ourselves, so we do have, I'm sharing, some experience highlights here with like a campus organization, and I'm highlighting some of my skills with that. And then, I have a question, about like I just want to get some more insights about this training program here. Um, and so, again, I do want to emphasize that please don't feel like you have to say this whole pitch, like your entire pitch, every time as soon as you meet the employer. I feel like just kind of see how the conversation's going, and if they leave it very open-ended, like, yeah, again, can you just share about your background, and then that's where you can kind of get into that, but then also like follow up with like a question as well too. Um, and then as another example, we have like your name again, major. Let's see what year you are. They bring up a specific role with a company here, Build Tech. And they talk about, some examples of the work they've done with that internship, that position, with project planning, process improvements. Um, and then, they talk about how their like skills and expertise line up with this position that they're applying for, and they're excited about the opportunity. And so, for this example, they provided some more specific examples about what they did in their position, which I would recommend. I feel like it's good to have those highlights there. Um, and then, but also they do bring up like, oh, this is how like my experience can line up with your company here. And so again, just wanting to show some different examples of how like, how like an elevator pitch could be crafted there. Okay. Let me see. So yeah, just some examples. And so now for some more like core tips. So definitely prep that resume. I would recommend having your resume be one page just because again, they're going to be looking at a lot of resumes for the day, and I feel like it is easier for employers to scan, quickly. And so just making sure where if you're like, um, you know, oh, I have a lot of different experiences, again, putting whatever's most relevant, like near like the top of the resume, because again we want to make sure that we're keeping their attention like as they're scanning, just so it's not like, oh, not relevant, okay, I don't feel like I'm going to move forward like with this person, like if they do apply. And so again, just keeping it relevant, keeping it concise in one page, making sure it's up to date, especially with like positions. And if you've had past positions, making sure to update those dates there, making sure it's organized, it's easy to read. And again, I'll go into resources for resume reviews and support if you do need that before the fair, and I'll bring that up at the end of the workshop. And so I feel like what could be helpful is for the resume. So a question I get a lot is, so I have to tailor my resume for every single company I'm talking to. And so I want to say yes and no. So for those priority companies, the ones you're really interested in, I would recommend having tailored versions. And so I'm not saying you have to make a new resume every single time. But for example, like, oh, company A is really focused on like AutoCAD. Like I really want to highlight that here. Or it's like, oh, this company, they really want to see more of like the soft skills. They want to see a lot of like leadership and initiative. Like, let me try to highlight like those kinds of skills in my bullet points more. Um, and so, again, it's like, for example, if it's like, oh, I've had these three engineering internships, you might change the order of them, based on the companies you're talking to. You might, like, as you talk about your experiences in your bullet points, you're like, oh, okay, like, I didn't mention those soft skills at all. Let me make sure to, I'll like kind of add them in here. And then you could have like more like general versions for like other companies that you're like, oh, as I go through the fair, I think I'll talk to them as well. Like they're not like my target, but like you would be open to them too. And so, yeah, that's what I'd recommend for the resumes there. And then I think it's helpful to have something you can take notes on. So whether it's a notebook, or like even if it's like your phone, for example. So what I recommend as you're talking to the employers, typically not to be taking notes as you're talking to them, just so it's more conversational, it feels more personable versus I feel like if you're taking notes during the entire conversation, it can feel more like formal and transactional. Um, so what I'd recommend is take notes right after you talk to them. So whether it's their name, key takeaways from the convo, specific details that were mentioned, how to follow up with them. But for example, like let's hit the end of the conversation. If they're giving you a lot of information about how to follow up, just ask them like, "Oh, is it okay if I take some quick notes on that?" Um, and so that's what I'd recommend. Yeah, again, just to kind of be courteous there. Okay. And then when you're going around the fair, I'd say to use like a small bag and or folder. It just makes it easier when you have less things with you at the job fair. It's okay if you do have your backpack because again, the job fair, this is on a college campus. They know that, you're students or alumni. Just make sure it looks professional. So if you have like, a lot of things on it, if you have like, bunch of, you have your water bottle and like you have an extra bag attached to it, um, if you're able to maybe like condense it just so it doesn't look kind of like messy and so it just kind of looks more organized and put together there. And so we are not able to store any items, and so please just make sure to keep that in mind if you want to like stop by your car first, and put things away, or again just on that day of that you're going to the job fair, so maybe not bringing so much with you for that day as well. um and so definitely also brainstorming questions for the company representatives like employers, recruiters, and asking a mix of questions. And I'll show some examples of this, like broad questions and specific questions. So broad questions to get just kind of more of a general idea about the company, and specific to really show more of that like intentional interest and like more about the company. And again, just keep in mind, like I know it can be very daunting to talk to the employers, but just also as you ask them questions, this is to help you learn too if that company is a good fit for you. So while they may be asking you a lot of questions to see if you align with them, I'd say to be doing the same vice versa as well. Um, and so these are some examples, like the broad ones, again, like to learn more about the company. How would you describe the company culture, a typical day in the role? And then some specific questions, maybe like, oh, sharing more information about their summer internship, mentorship opportunities, or, oh, I saw, you recently launched this project. How has that impacted the company? With like future, like services, for example. All right. And so another big question that comes up is pay and salary. And so I know it's like, okay, like how do I bring this up? Do I not bring it up? But I want to make sure I know. And because again, it's a very important area. And so you can bring this up with them, but just being very strategic with how you do that. And so for example, please do not, I would not recommend bringing this up right at the very beginning. You want to build the rapport first, kind of get comfortable, let the employer get to know you. You get to know more about them, which is why I would ideally recommend bringing this up. Like, if this information wasn't provided in like the job posting you saw in CareerLink, um, near the end of the conversation or after the employers brought it up. As soon as the employers brought it up, we can keep talking about that. But near the end, that kind of ensures like that you've had at least some time for both of you to get to know each other more. And if they do answer it, great. If they say we're not able to answer it at this time, and then so, again, you could always bring this up, like, for example, if they're not able to answer because they're at that time because they don't know, they're not sure. And so another staff member could speak more on that. And so hopefully, again, if you do move forward with that job posting, that interview process, then more information could be shared. Um, and so again, just some, potential ways about how you could, approach that with the employer. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so dress for success. And so, dress accordingly. And I'll show some examples. I normally recommend, just kind of going for more like conservative, like business attire. Not wearing anything that could distract, like heavy perfume or cologne or like lots of jewelry. Um, and then also avoiding anything that's too casual or revealing. So I do want to say, because again, they understand that you're students and that you may not have had the time to change or, to bring a, change of clothes from home. And so if you're dressed casually, that is okay. I would just recommend, just trying to just make sure again that you look, like organized, put together, even if it is casual. But um, if possible, I do recommend, if you're able to bring a change of clothes or to come to campus already dressed in the attire, um, just to have that ready. But I would say, especially for clothes that can more easily wrinkle, especially for like dress shirts or like silk, for example, if you're able to just kind of maybe change into that later, that's what I'd recommend. Okay, and so just some examples. So again, there's different ways of dressing. So whether it's like I have like a button down, I have that with like a sweater or like a suit jacket or a sport coat. I have some like slacks or like dress pants, or like a blouse and like a blazer, and then like, dress shoes or like pumps. So just some options here. But then also, some people like to go for that full like suit and tie, a full like like matching like jacket and pants there. But again, there's a lot of different ways. I'll see different things, whether it's like people with like, skirts, or like short sleeve blouses. Or I'll see people just with like dress shirts. And then I think I've also seen, for example, people have like, like dark colored jeans if they don't, like if you don't have like slacks, for example, or like dress pants. Um, and so, just some different options that you can use there, like flats as well. So, yeah, just to give you some ideas. And so for during the fair, with how to approach that, so it can feel overwhelming and confusing with a lot going on, but again, you can always take a break whenever you need to, and our staff's going to be there throughout the whole fair to help, support, answer any questions. And again, you can find us wearing the blue shirts. Okay. And so again, we're going to be at the Walter Pyramid. And so again, at the blue ramp, let's see. And so again, it's just showing a quick picture of like, you'll be getting your name tags, you'll be getting those wristbands to show you've checked in already. Okay. And then you'll also see throughout the fair a lot of these big boards that'll have the list of the companies and the positions they're hiring for, as well as their table numbers. And you'll also see big boards of like the maps that I showed earlier. But again, you'll also be given handouts of what's on these boards as well. Okay, so during the fair, so be punctual if you're able to. It can be helpful to arrive early, so that way you get into the fair, like close to or like right when we open it up, at 5 o'clock there. But again, it depends on your schedule. It's okay. You can really join the fair technically at any time. Um, but I would recommend, you know, I think, coming like earlier if you're able to, versus, because I know it's from 5 to 8 o'clock. And so, for example, let's say you're only available at 7, you can still come. But at the same time, just keeping in mind there may be a long line for like the employer you wanted to talk to. And so making sure you have the time to speak with them, but you can technically show up at any time. And also just managing your expectations. For each employer, there's different personalities. Um, Different ways of how like their companies, have processes for hiring, and then also with like interview types where, for some employers it may be very conversational, some it may feel very much like a quick interview, it just depends. And so it could be helpful to visit tables with fewer crowds first. If you're like, especially if they're not like your priority companies, you're like, let me, start talking to a few here, and then maybe I'll rejoin those like bigger lines and hopefully they'll have gone down. Okay. And then, so again, make sure to, after you talk to employers, write down any of those notes and key points. I would recommend not saying you'll take any job, because for employers that could kind of show like a lack of like direction. That could also show like, oh, like you're not really too interested in us, like you're open to like any kind of company. So I think ways you could rephrase that are things like, oh, I'm very focused on like an internship in like blank industry, but like I am open. So it's like you have that focus, but you're still open. And then, also with being on your cell phone, I would say, like, as you're waiting in line, for example, and getting closer to talk to the employer, um, not for it to be you on your phone the entire time. Just because, again, I feel like, I think for employers, they want to like, even though they're talking to one student and the others are in line, doesn't want it to seem like, oh, I'm just closed off from everything here. So not to say you can't use it, but not for it to seem like you're on the phone the entire time. And then also just, take initiative as you go throughout the fair. If you're like, you know, if you go to a table and the two employers are talking to each other, just, you can still go up and then, just kind of like, like a hello, like a, just like checking in here, just wanted to, learn more about, you and your organization. And then just being positive, having a professional attitude, being prepared for questions they may ask. And then for handing out your resume, I'd recommend doing that at the end of the conversation and asking them also if you can give them your resume, since, by that point, they know who you are, you've gotten a better idea of who they are, and the resume is a way for that, your background to be summarized to them again, versus at the very beginning, like they're just meeting you. And so we're just, we want to ease into that conversation, and then near the end, we can ask to give it to them. Um, Employer contact info, you can also ask at the end as well. Like, oh, how can I follow up with you or stay in touch? Like, what would next steps be? If they do have business cards, for example. And I know the tables for companies, they do have a lot of like items, like a lot of like freebies. I would say just to be careful with those, not to have it seem like I'm taking like I'm just here just to I'm just here for like the free stuff. Especially if it's a company you're interested in. Like you could take like, a small thing here and there, but not for it to feel like that's your main focus though. And yeah, during your time at the fair, network with other students and like campus members, maybe like while you're in line, for example. And then for employer expectations, I think ideally it is nice to see the professional attire, an organized, up-to-date resume, good communication, having that eye contact there, having a clear objective, for, what you're looking for in terms of employment or just a clear objective overall, but then also being able to bring in key details about like what do you have to offer the company, like what makes you stand out. And so now for after the fair. All right, so to wrap us up in our last few minutes, so again, you have your notes. I'd recommend whatever process you have, if you just like to write out everything or making a document online for it, just so you have these notes to refer to for reference. So whether it's talking points and then also including the job description that they had on CareerLink. And so again, you did it. And so reflect on your experience, what you feel like you did well, what you'd like to improve on, how you feel like the networking went. And we also ask that you complete the job fair survey that we'll be emailing out to everyone afterwards, and just to get us feedback with how we can always be improving the job fairs. And so I would recommend following up with the company representatives. And so sending personalized thank you emails within 24 hours. I usually recommend, let me see, I think within that 24 hours, just so you don't let too much time pass. And then, it's like, it's harder for them to remember, recall who you were. And then in this thank you email, doesn't have to be long, just, something short and sweet that, reiterates your interest in the company, the position, bringing up a specific detail you spoke about with the employer so they can like remember, recall you. And then but also just making sure that in general you're following whatever instructions they gave you for applying. So if they said to apply on the website, I would not recommend sending like their resume again over email, like, oh, just for the position. But if it's like they already told you to go to their website, and then based on, your conversations with the employers, if maybe some of them gave feedback, updating your resume. And then I think LinkedIn's also a nice way to, connect with prospective like employers, recruiters. Um, where you could always like reach out and like message like, oh, we met at the job fair recently. I'd love to connect and like stay in touch. And then for LinkedIn, if you have a profile, just make sure it's up to date. If you don't have one, it's okay. It's not saying where you have to go out and make a LinkedIn now. But I feel like LinkedIn, it is very much, I feel like, a big like go-to site for like networking and for just kind of like seeing what people are up to. Where I feel like with email, it's harder to see that. With LinkedIn, people can be sharing updates more easily there. Okay. And so this is an example of the email. Hope it finds them well. Thank you so much for speaking with me. I'm bringing up specific detail about the projects we talked about. And oh, for the next steps, I'm going to be submitting my application on your website per your directions. Thank you again. So very short and sweet there. And then so for some last resources, so again, for more tips for before the job fair, during the job fair, after, if you go to our website, and then we'll have, if you go to our students tab, and then go to events and workshops, and then job fairs, you will see a handout for making the most of the job fair. And so we have more tips there. And then we do have drop-in advising. And so this is, especially if you wanted to get your resume reviewed or just more tips about networking or maybe even like your LinkedIn. These are short 15-20 minute sessions with our career peer advisor. So these are shorter than our appointments. But again, you don't need to have an appointment. It's walk-in only. You can access it. So drop in person is in Brotman Hall 250 at the Career Center, but you can also access it via Zoom. And so we're open Monday through Friday, 12 to 3 p.m., Zoom in person. And so tomorrow, Tuesday, we would have extended hours. So 3 to 6:30 p.m. But that would be on Zoom only. So Tuesday, tomorrow, we have 12 to 3, Zoom in person, and then we have 3 to 6:30 Zoom only. And we do have career counseling appointments, but because the job fair is coming up on Wednesday, you could check to see if there is availability if you wanted a longer session. But I know they do tend to book up very quickly. And so, but you can still check to see. And so, again, with that, again, we're in Brotman Hall 250. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our phone number is below here. And so, with that, thank you all for attending. I'll go ahead and stop the recording here.